And we can always stop and I can eat.
Perfect. We start with your full name, please.
Richard David Kellis.
Can you spell that for me?
Kellis.
And your first and middle name as well, please.
Spell Richard,
Yes.
Richard, and then David, David.
You never know. Some people spell it differently. Can you tell me when and where you were born?
I was born in Los Angeles, Boyle Heights, February the 12th, 1925.
So how old are you currently?
92. I'll be 93 in February.
And which branch of the military did you serve in?
U.S. Navy.
And what years did you serve?
1943 to I don't remember. It's on, when is it? When was I discharged? No, it's on the big one. May the 13th.
Oh, right here. May 13th, 1946.
46.
And when did I go in?
You in February of 43, I think.
That's right.
And what was your rank, your full rank upon discharge?
Yeoman, second class.
In your time during the service, which ships did you serve on?
First one was the USS Doherty, a destroyer Estor, DE-14. Then I went on the USS Pasadena, CL-65, which was a light cruiser, pretty big ship. And the last one was the USS Salisbury Sound, which was a seaplane tender. We brought seaplanes aboard and fixed them and put them back in the water again.
And which theater of operations did you serve in?
Asia,
And
South Pacific.
and were you guys involved in any significant battles, any specific conflicts?
Yes.
Which ones?
Well, give me that little one, that little ship.
This one?
Yeah. Well, we first went to Luzon and Mindanao in the Philippines and bombarded the Philippines so that MacArthur could come back with his corncob pipe. And then we bombarded Formosa. Formosa is now I can't remember the name of it. And then we went to French Indochina and bombarded there in Hong Kong. Back to Formosa, then bombarded Okinawa, and then bombarded Tokyo. We tried to blow up all the gasoline tanks on the Honshu. And then we bombarded Iwo Jima until we went back to the Tokyo area and then back to Okinawa. That'd give you an idea.
Did you guys receive any medals or commendations for any of the conflicts that you were involved in?
Well, I received American Theater with 4 stars in it, stars for battles, and then the Asiatic Pacific with 2 stars in it for battles.
Great. Now I'd like to rewind a bit and talk about your childhood, your family life growing up. Did you have any siblings?
Yes, I have 2 brothers.
And what are their names? And are they older or younger?
Younger.
Both are younger.
Leo's 2.5 years younger than I am. Larry's 10 years younger than I am.
So they both missed the war, I'm assuming.
No, Larry was in the, yeah, they missed World War II.
Yeah.
My number 2 brother, who was 2.5 years younger, he was in World War II.
Okay. Where was he during the war?
He was in Treasure Island in near San Francisco. He was running the computers. In those days, the computers were the size of a building. And if something went wrong, you had to fix it. There was nobody to fix it.
There's no IT department?
No, nothing like that. Everything was, well, it was just the beginning of computers.
Were you guys close growing up, you and your 2 brothers?
Well, I was taken away right away, practically. We were close when we were younger.
When you were little.
When we were younger, we played games and stuff like that, baseball together in the streets. In those days, you could play in the streets.
And tell me about your parents. What were their names?
My mother's name was Irene. Maiden name was Hecht, Hecht. And she died at 94. She worked at, well, first she went to USC to learn, what do you call it? How to inspect planes and whatnot for inspection. Then she went to work at North American in El Segundo, and her job was inspecting the planes. And if the rivets were bad or anything was wrong, she wouldn't let them go through. And she made them send them back and fix them. And the guys would say, how come? I mean, this is not going to hurt anything. She says, I've got 2 boys over there. Don't tell me how come. And they stopped. That was the end of the conversation. But she worked there through the war. And then she went to work for the Red Cross, and she discharged me. Wrote up my discharge papers and everything else and discharged me.
But that was a happy day for her.
Yeah, it was a happy day for her.
Probably you as well, I'm assuming.
Yeah. But what had happened in the meantime, she had divorced my father. He was sort of an alcoholic. And it was kind of bad because I was gone. And then my brothers needed somebody to talk to, and they didn't have me. And that was they both got mentally hurt because of the divorce. But those things happen. She went to work for California Bank when I got out of the service. And then she went to work for another savings and loan company, but I forgot which one. But she was a very smart woman.
And did your father work?
He, when I was born, he was driving a yellow cab. And then he was actually a bookie, which was taking bets and all that stuff, illegally, of course. And he had about 100 arrests, no convictions. So the last time he was arrested, the judge said, I'm going to convict you. I don't care what your lawyer says if you come in here again. So that was the last time he did it. Anyway, then one time, he used to visit us all the time. And then one time he didn't come for about a week or so, and I went over to his house and found out he was dying of pneumonia. So I took him to the hospital and packed his stuff up and brought him over to my house. And he lived with us for about 11 years. It was a tough road to hoe for my wife, because he was a tough guy to to handle. You want me to ramble? I'm rambling. So.
That's okay. Can you talk about growing up during the Depression?
Yeah, we didn't have any food. Sometimes we had oatmeal 3 times a day, and hot chocolate to drink or whatever. But anyway, my grandmother and grandfather on my mother's side would bring us over groceries all the time because my grandfather worked at the American Can Company, and he designed all their belt systems for putting tops on cans and filling them up. You know, the belt went around. And so anyway, I don't know what that is.
Sounds like a dog, maybe?
Huh?
A dog?
They got a St. Bernard, big one. So anyway, yeah, he worked at American Can Company, and finally he got a job for my mother there. She worked where they were canning chili, and she used to come home and her hands were peeling from the hot chili. Really. And her and I would have a cigarette together in the kitchen when she came home. And I was working the thrifty drugstore.
How old were you when you had your first job?
15. Well, I had to work because we didn't have any money. And so I got an ad in the paper, went downtown Los Angeles to the main 50 drugstore, and they had an opening for a dishwasher in Huntington Park. So I went to work in Huntington Park as a dishwasher. There were 2 of us washing dishes. The other guy was an old man. He was an alcoholic, and he drank all the time out of a paper bag.
On the job?
On the job, but I didn't drink. I didn't drink at all anyway. Too young. So I worked my way up to be a busboy. Then I worked my way up to be a waiter. And I worked my way up to be a soda jerk. Made all the soda drinks, malts, and et cetera, banana splits, everything. And so I was what is known as third man. And so I went to the cook because we worked a split shift in those days. And on my time off, I went to the cook and I said, I'd like to learn how to cook. He says, okay. So he taught me how to cook, be a fry cook, make sandwiches and fry eggs and steaks and whatnot. So I worked on my own time, didn't get paid for it, learning how to cook. And now I was, 16 or 17. And all of a sudden the war started, December 7th. And everybody ran out in the streets to see what was going on. It was a very important time.
Let me ask you real quick, do you remember how much money you were getting paid?
I was making 35 cents an hour. And then we had to go on strike. We had to join the union. And, the union came in and signed up everybody. So the union, I forgot, it was $2 a week or $4 a week they took. At 35 cents an hour, they took half my wages practically. And so anyway, if I was going to join the union, I went down to see what was going on. So I'm just a kid, 16 probably. And I went down to the union hall, and there was nobody there, except there was a meeting on the stage, And I was sitting there with an old guy, and he says, "Don't say a word, just watch." And I watched, and the guys were giving themselves salaries and vacations, and voting, all sorts of stuff. My money. So I went back to my boss, and I said, "I quit." He says, "No, no, what are you quitting for?" I said, "You make me join the union, and I'm not going to join that union." And I told him what I saw. And he says, "Okay, you're not in the union. You can still work." So he let me work. I didn't have to join the union.
Got to keep all your money?
I got to keep all my money, which I gave to my mother.
Did you keep any of it for yourself, or did it all go?
Oh, change, maybe a quarter for candy or something. But no, I didn't keep much money.
Now, what are some of the things that you would do for fun growing up?
Well, sports. And those days we used to have empty lots on the streets, and we'd set up and build a fort in an empty lot. You know, pull the weeds out, dig a hole, climb in, and we would fight some other kids who would come over and shoot us with slingshots or whatever they had. It was just games. So we played that, and we played marbles and baseball. Baseball was about the only game we played. Oh yeah, we played broom hockey, where you used a broom on a bicycle, and you played hockey
With a ball?
with a ball. It was called broom hockey. And we played in the streets in front of our house. And then one day, a car came up behind us, and the guy honked his horn. We didn't see him. And a friend of mine died of a heart attack on the street. Fell down dead.
Really?
Scared him half to death, I guess. And scared him to death. And so then we were very careful about playing in the streets anymore.
How old was he?
My age, he was about 12, 10 or 12. I almost forgot about that.
How did that make you feel when that happened?
Scared to death. Yeah, and I've never seen anybody die before. I was too young. In school, I remember a kid had an epileptic fit. Fell on the floor and frothing at the mouth and all that. That scared the devil out of me. I'd never seen anything like that before either. And so, but those things stuck in my mind.
Now, did you graduate from high school?
Yes. I graduated and joined the Navy the same day.
So let's rewind. We'll rewind a little bit, and we'll talk about when the attack on Pearl Harbor occurred. You remember where you were that day?
Yeah, I was working at your drugstore when they attacked Pearl Harbor, and which was the most excitement I've ever seen. Everybody was screaming. People were running around the streets. People left their work. It just seemed to be something that I was too young to really understand what was going on. But we used to listen to the radio, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and he'd give a family talk or whatever it was every night.
Fireside chat?
Fireside chat, that's what it was called. And then we would listen to that, my mother and I and my brothers, and find out what was going on in the world.
Do you remember listening to his address to the nation the following day?
Oh, yes. Everything.
And do you remember the feelings that you had around that time?
Oh, yeah, we were gung-ho. I went down to join up at 12. And they sent me home and said, come back in a few more years and you can... It wasn't 12, I was 16. 41. Yeah, I was 16. And I went down to join up, and they wouldn't take me. I said, I could bring a letter from my mother, and we're not going to take you anyway. I looked about 10. I was very young looking. And so as soon as I graduated high school, I went down and joined. I was 17 then.
Now, did any of your school buddies, did they join up? Did they sign up for the war?
Yeah, all of us went in. Everybody went in. That I know of. In fact, a whole bunch of us, about 6 or 7 of us, all joined up, all graduated, and all went down to Central Avenue, which was all black neighborhood, and we went into a bar. We were 16, 17, and we ordered a drink, and they gave us a drink. We told them we just joined the service. They were so nice. We were the only white people there, 6 of us. The rest of them were all black, which was okay. We didn't even think about it, you know. I was never prejudiced, so didn't even worry about it.
Now, was the legal drinking age a bit lower back then?
No, 21.
It was 21.
Yeah, they really put themselves out on a limb, but that didn't make any difference.
They could have gotten in pretty big trouble had they.
Terrible trouble, but you know what? Who was going to do anything? We were joining the service. We were going out to fight the war, and the war had just been going on for just a year. And so, no one was going to bother him. And we didn't get drunk. Well, we just had one drink.
Now, do you remember who your closest friend was in high school? Did you have a best friend or a few best friends?
Yeah, Skaggs was his name. He was a lot older than I was. He'd failed a couple of times, so he was about 21, still in high school. But we were fairly good friends. But I never really had close friends in school, in high school.
Did you have any girlfriends in high school?
No.
Now, your buddies that went to join up, did they join the Navy as well, or did they kind of pick their own path?
They picked everybody picked their own path. A lot of them joined the Navy. A lot of them, in other words, that picture of all the servicemen,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody was in high school with me on that picture.
And why did you choose the Navy?
I just did.
Mm-hmm.
I just did. I really didn't care to do hand-to-hand combat, and I didn't want to shoot somebody dead. So in the Navy, you don't know who you're shooting. So.
And did you have the support of your parents? Of
Oh,
your
yeah.
mother?
Oh, yeah. My mother wrote me every day for 4 years. I got a letter every day. One time we were at sea for 72 days without seeing land or anything. When I got our mail, I had 72 letters from my mother. Lined them all up, started reading them. But she wrote me every single day.
Now, where did you go for your basic training?
San Diego.
And can you talk about that experience a little bit?
Well, I didn't know too much about. Yeah, I went down there by train, and I really don't remember too much. It was very simple. We just went into training. We had to do a lot of hiking, a lot of marching, a lot of firing of guns, a lot of pre-war stuff, teaching us what to do in case, we got stuck on an island or something. But anyway, but I couldn't swim. So that whole group went out to sea, and I had to stay there till I could swim. And so I took swimming lessons. That didn't do any good. I was like a rock in the water. And so I went to take the test, and the guy who was giving me the test was talking to somebody else, wasn't really paying any attention. So I walked part of the way. Then when I saw he looked at me, then I, pretended like I was swimming. And so he passed me. And so we had to jump off like a 40-foot platform into the pool. With a life jacket on, and hang on to it, pretend like we're jumping off a ship. And you had to do it. Next, next, next. And it just kept jumping. You tried not to jump on somebody's head. And of course, they used a hook and pulled me out of the way so nobody would jump on me. That was interesting. Anyway, so I went to bed that night, and they woke me up and said, "Your name's on the roster. You're going on aboard the USS Doherty." I said, "Okay." And I packed up everything, and they put me on a small motor whaleboat and took me out to sea. Well, I didn't know what the Doherty was. Could be an aircraft carrier as far as I was concerned. And this was in San Diego Harbor, and there were battleships, and there were cruisers, and way out, there was this little destroyer escort, looked like about a foot long. So I went aboard that. And I got there, and they didn't have a bunk for me. And so they said, "You have to swing a hammock." I said, "Okay." So I swung my hammock. And then they woke me up at 5 in the morning and said, "You're in the kitchen." I didn't know I was in the kitchen. So they made me take my hammock down and all that. And I became sort of a busboy, because I was just an apprentice seaman. And I served meals. And then on payday, you passed a bowl around, and they would all toss in $1 or 50 cents or something because you served them, which was interesting.
I think your son had mentioned to me that are you partially colorblind, or?
I'm colorblind.
Colorblind. So
well, that was another thing.
Okay, can you talk about that experience?
Yeah, I failed my entrance exam into the Navy.
This is when you originally were going.
This was when I originally went in, because I was colorblind. So I went was downtown L.A.
Well, how did you feel when they turned you away?
Felt terrible. I had no idea I was colorblind. You never took did you ever take a color test when you were a kid? No, nobody even knew about it. So this was before they found out that colorblind people can see through camouflage, which was a good thing. But anyway, back to Siberia. I went to a barbershop to get a haircut. And I was sitting there waiting for my turn. Haircuts were 25 cents. And there on the coffee table thing was that color book, the book with all the numbers in it, that I had to take the test and failed. So I took the thing, and a guy was sitting next to me. I said, "Do you see any numbers there?" He said, "Sure, there's a 7. As soon as he told me, I saw the 7. The next one, he said, "That's an 8 or a 6, whatever." And so I went through a whole book, and then he tested me on the whole thing. Then I went right back and joined the Navy, and they accepted me. And I passed the colorblind test. But I couldn't see the numbers at all. But I knew once somebody told me that there was a number there, then somehow the brain worked. So I passed.
And you were able to memorize
I memorized the book, sitting there in the barbershop. I'd forgotten about that. So, and they never give you another test anyway.
So were there any other memorable experiences during your training? Anything else that sticks out in your memory?
I really can't think of anything.
Do you have your instructors? Do you remember them at all?
No. Don't remember my instructors at all.
And did you make any close friends? Or
Well, I had friends, we'd go into town and have a drink or something, you know, but no close friends. I never, and then I told you they sent me out to sea, and by the way, when I was on the hammock, you know, the ship took off and went to sea. The ship was going like this, but I was steady because I was on the hammock. It didn't bother me at all. I never got seasick in my life. So anyway, we were a quarter of a way to Hawaiian Islands when they woke me up and found out. So that was kind of fun to get to Hawaii.
And what was your job on the Doherty?
It was a seaman, which means cleaning up everything, shining up everything, making sure that everything was shipshape, so to speak.
Did you guys eventually arrive in Pearl Harbor?
Mm-hmm. That's when we saw all those ships half sunk. You know, the whole Pearl Harbor was still the way it was after the Japs sank all our ships. And so later on, when I came back, they had cleaned it all up, took all the ships away or whatever.
Do you remember seeing the ships in the harbor there, and do you remember the thoughts that were going through your head at that time? Did it?
No, it was sort of exciting to see all that because you had read about it, and Roosevelt told everybody about it, so it was exciting to see it. Let's see. Oh yeah, you had to be back aboard ship at 5. All lights were out in Hawaii. It was pitch black. And if you were driving a car at night, your lights had to be painted half black and just a little sliver on top, because they thought the Japs were coming back, but they never did.
And how long were you in the Hawaiian Islands for?
Oh, just for a day or two, and then we got orders to go to Alaska on the USS Doherty. That's the first ship I was on. So then we went to Anchorage, and then Sitka and all the islands, the Aleutian Islands. And what we did, we picked up Russian ships that came. We were a Lend-Lease program then, and we would, the ships would pick up, I forgot what it was, tractors and all sorts of stuff that we loaned to Russia. And so we would convoy maybe a dozen ships. We'd just go around the circle, make sure there were no submarines around. And we would go to Vladivostok in Russia, above Japan, take the ships there and pick up another group of ships and bring them back to the
Are
Aleutian.
these like cargo ships? Or?
Yeah, these were all cargo ships. We were lending, it was called a Lend-Lease program at that time. We were lending them stuff that they needed to farm. So that's what I did. We were, until I got transferred. That's when I got a transfer. I saw a transfer to Newport, Rhode Island, from Alaska to put the USS Pasadena into commission. What they do when they put a new ship in is they draw up people from all over the world, so that nobody gets, too many people from one area. It wouldn't be a good thing. So they draw people from all over. So that's why I had no friends, because they came from all over.
So how long when did that transfer occur? When did you leave the Doherty?
Well, I was transferred in January, I think it was. The Doherty I went to was in May or June. And so...
Did you request the transfer, you said, or they?
Yeah, I requested it.
And for any particular reason?
No, just why should I stay up there, and if I can get transferred to another ship and see what's going on. I wanted to go around the world, Yeah. I wanted to see different things, be on different types of ships. I was on 3 different ships. Not many guys did that. Fact is, the Pasadena was there at the signing in Pearl Harbor of the Japanese surrender, and I missed it because I was transferred to another ship. But I figured I'd never do this again, so I wanted to do different things. I always was like that.
So there was a few months in between you leaving the Doherty and getting on the Pasadena?
No, it was about 4 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, because let's see. Yeah, the Pasadena wasn't even built yet. It was just beginning. It was being built in Boston, naval shipyards. And that was, I told you I came back from the guys from Guadalcanal. The ship was full of, the train was full of guys from Guadalcanal who had been fighting like crazy. And they were all Marines, and I was the only sailor in the cars we were in. So they sort of took care of me. And they had suitcases full of booze, just full. So we just drank. And then they said, let's see if we can find you a girlfriend. So they went down the train, and they picked up a girl and brought her back to me. 19-year-old. It's a very pretty girl. And she sat with me, and we necked on the train in front of all these Marines. Didn't bother me any. And then she got off in Chicago, and so they bought me a ticket from Chicago to Rhode Island and let me get off with her. And we spent a couple of days together in a hotel room, and it was terrific. And then I had to get back on and kissed her goodbye. And I went on to Rhode Island.
Well, that was nice of them.
It was nice of them. They're all very nice. Well, I looked like I was 12. Really, I was the young. You never saw somebody look so young in all your life. And I looked very young. And they just sort of took care of me.
So where did the train originate? Where did you get on the train originally? On the West Coast?
I got on the train, and I got on a plane from Alaska to Seattle. In Seattle, I got on a train to Los Angeles because they let me have a week to go home to visit my mother. And then so I went home. And then stayed with my family for a week. And then I got on a train in Los Angeles and went straight through to Chicago, changed in Chicago to New York to Rhode Island.
And how was it seeing your family again?
But that was fun. I loved it. I'm my own boy. Seeing my family was very important because I knew I probably wouldn't see him again forever, it seemed like, because I was going to board the USS Pasadena, but I didn't know where she was going. I had no idea. And when I got to Rhode Island, I had to swing on a rope across a stream and crawl on my belly with machine gun bullets above my head. I mean, all this stuff, I thought, this is ridiculous. So that's when I found out that there was a guy, they wanted somebody in the office. So that's when I said, I'm going to strike as a yeoman. So they said, can you type? And I said, yes, but I couldn't. And so I took the keys on a typewriter. Well, I took a quarter and I made circles and I put the whole thing, typewriter, on the wall in front of me and sat there and typed all day long until I learned how to type.
So you taught yourself?
Taught myself. And so I typed, and then I was a yeoman. No more machine guns shooting at me.
Now let me ask you, that week that you got to spend with your family, remember that day that you had to leave them again, when you had to leave your mother again?
Mm-hmm.
Did she say anything to you? Was there any words exchanged?
Nothing that you asked me to remember something that happened 80 some odd years ago, and nothing that stuck.
Yeah.
No, it was, hugs and kisses and goodbyes to my brothers, 2 brothers.
Now, can you explain to me again what a yeoman is and does?
Yeah, a yeoman takes care, at least my job was to take care of all the records of all the enlisted men. In other words, make sure that everything is put in the records that it's going on. If we, let's say we bombarded Okinawa, we put that in the records like this. See, we made sure that they had, everything was in their records. And then if any of them got transferred either on board or from on board to another ship, we had to make up all the papers and everything else.
And were you or were you one of many yeomen for that ship, or was it your sole responsibility?
Well, no. There was about 4 or 5 of us in this one office. Then there was the captain's office, and he had 3 or 4 yeomen in there too. But the yeoman worked for the captain and the executive officers. They worked, they did everything that, for like transferring of personnel or bringing on board personnel or anything like that. Or any correspondence. Like if the captain wanted to write to an admiral, he'd write a letter or call us in and dictate a letter to us, and we would type it out. And it had to be done a certain way. It wasn't nothing personal on it. It was, you start out with a name and address and who it's going to, and everything is in specific Navy order, discipline. So anyway, then when I got home, finally, and the war was over. I was in San Pedro when the war was over. all traffic from San Pedro to Los Angeles was one way. They drove wrong side of the streets. Everybody came to go to LA when the war was over. Nobody was going the other direction.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your time spent on the Pasadena. You disembarked from Rhode Island, correct?
I disembarked from Rhode Island, yes.
And where did you guys go from there?
Well, we were on board the Pasadena, and then it went down to Trinidad for a shakedown cruise. That's to make sure that everything works. And anything that didn't work, when we came back, they fixed it. So we went on a shakedown cruise with the Missouri. It was being built too at the time. So the two ships went down there, and we stayed down there for 3 or 4 days. And we went aboard. We had Liberty. And the only thing was that we were gambling, shaking dice. And I was gambling, and I won $500. Never touched the dice. I was just with the guy or against him, whoever was throwing. So when I went back aboard ship, I went to the purser, the guy that handles all the money, and I said, "Will you take care of this for me?" And he said, "Sure." So he put it away. So when we got back and they were fixing the ship up, we had 3 or 4 days in Boston and in New York. And so I had $500. So I could get a nice hotel room. I could eat out wherever I wanted. You know, it was terrific.
Living large, huh?
Yeah. And I met a couple of guys, and we were together the whole time. But then when I went back aboard, they were gone. But we had fun while we were in New York.
Can you take a little break to eat?
Yeah, of course.
I know he's hungry. He doesn't usually.
Yeah.
Oh, food?